This video was produced by the Victorian Injury Surveillance Unit, also known as VISU, which is part of the Monash University Accident Research Centre. We are going to talk about the injury surveillance questions completed for emergency department presentations in Victorian hospitals. These questions are included in the Victorian Emergency Minimum Dataset, also known as the VMD, which is used by VISU to track injuries. VISU is a research unit which provides an injury surveillance service to injury prevention organisations, researchers, the media, government agencies and other stakeholders. This service is highly dependent on the quality of the data that we receive from hospitals. So what do we mean by injury surveillance? Injury surveillance is defined as the ongoing collection of data describing the occurrence of and factors associated with injury. It tells us how many injuries there are in the population, who is at risk, and how these injuries are caused. Injury surveillance helps to measure the problem, which is the first step towards solving it. Injury surveillance informs policy and practices aimed at preventing injury by helping to track injury rates over time and comparing by factors such as place of occurrence. A recent example of this is when VISU identified rapid changes in home injuries during the 2020 lockdown periods in Victoria. Here are two recent examples of how injury surveillance provided through Victorian Emergency Department data has informed safety promotion campaigns. The WorkSafe Farm Injury Prevention campaign, It's Never You Until It Is, was informed by data about the number of farm injuries and their causes. A government campaign to prevent falls from ladders was informed by hospital data that showed older men are more likely to fall from ladders while undertaking do-it-yourself activities at home. There are many more examples of how injury surveillance is used to inform policy and practice. VISU works with the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, the ACCC, to monitor injuries, which has led to stricter regulations and safety measures such as safer packaging for button batteries, safety roll bars on quad bikes, and furniture now being sold with straps that attach to the wall to prevent it from tipping over. VISU monitors transport injuries in partnership with VicRoads, the Transport Accident Commission, and the Victoria Police. An important area is monitoring of intentional self-harm, and these data inform researchers, media, mental health practitioners and government departments. VISU also works with Lifesaving Victoria to monitor drownings each year. The injury surveillance questions are mandatory for all presentations where an injury code appears in the primary diagnosis field. These questions are not just an administrative task. They are an important part of future injury prevention efforts and help with the tracking of circumstances of injuries over time. Guidelines for answering the injury surveillance questions are provided in the VMD manual, which is available on the Health Department website. VISU has recommended that hospitals appoint an injury surveillance champion. If you already have one at your hospital, they are a valuable resource if you're unsure about how to answer a particular injury surveillance question. There are 7 questions to complete as part of injury surveillance in Victorian emergency departments. 6 of these questions usually appear as a list of items in a drop-down box. These are nature of the main injury, body region of injury, cause of injury, place of injury, activity when injured, and human intent. Answering these questions with specific categories is a vital part of injury surveillance as it provides comprehensive information about all factors associated with an injury. The 7th question or item, which is the description of event, is entered as text, usually at triage. It is important to provide information in addition to the other 6 questions, for example, information about any products involved in the injury. We will now go through the injury surveillance questions or items, one at a time. Firstly, the nature of the main injury can be easily determined from the primary diagnosis code. Here are a few examples of the main injury types: superficial injuries, open wounds, fractures, foreign bodies and poisonings, as well as injuries of an unspecified nature. The second question is the body region of injury. Note there are separate codes for injuries involving foreign bodies and for those not related to foreign bodies. Information about body region can be found in the primary diagnosis code. Combined with the main injury type, body region helps with tracking of specific injuries over time. For example, hip fractures in older people or foreign bodies in children. The third question, cause of injury, is the most important injury surveillance question and crucial to injury prevention. Some of the many examples include transport injuries, falls, drowning and other threats to breathing, poisoning, dog-related injuries, burns, and assaults. When the injury cause is specified, it helps to monitor trends and informs injury prevention efforts for all types of injuries. Falls are a major cause of injury across all age groups, and it's important to be able to monitor whether they're increasing. For example, falls that cause hip fractures are a common reason for hospitalisation in older people. Poisoning from prescription drugs such as opioids and antidepressants, or illicit drugs such as heroin, are monitored by VISU in partnership with researchers and organisations such as Turning Point. Changes over time in dog bite injuries are monitored and used to inform animal policies within state and local government areas. Transport injuries among pedal cyclists were an important cause during 2020, as the hospital data showed an increase in these injuries among young children and teenagers during the lockdown periods. The fourth question asks about the place of injury, which is also a very important item for injury surveillance and prevention. This is a complex item with many definitions. You can become more familiar with these by checking the VMD manual or asking your injury surveillance champion. There are many categories for place. The home location, for example, includes places inside the home as well as outside areas such as the driveway, garage, garden or yard, and paths to the home. This location was important for injury surveillance in Victoria during 2020, when injuries in the home increased during lockdown periods. Athletics or sports areas include places such as cricket grounds, football or hockey fields, golf courses, swimming pools, and tennis courts. Injuries coded to these locations help to define sports injuries, which are tracked over time, and the information is provided to university researchers as well as the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. VISU provides yearly updates to Parks Victoria on injuries relating to water sports. The location of road, street or highway includes freeways, footpaths, motorways, the pavements, and roads. Transport injuries are monitored by VISU in collaboration with the Transport Accident Commission and VicRoads. Farms are also an important location, as emergency department records can provide more comprehensive information than WorkSafe claims data. There is a long list of other specified places in the VMD manual, and these include locations such as a forest, beach, river or stream, and many more. The fifth question asks about the activity when injured and includes categories such as sports, leisure, working for income, other unpaid work, educational activities, and vital activities such as eating and sleeping. When the activity is specified, it helps with tracking of injuries related to sports and workplace injuries, as well as do-it-yourself injuries that fall under the other unpaid work category. Sports injuries represent a large burden on emergency departments, with around 168,000 patients presenting in Victoria from 2017 to 2020. This represents an average of over 1,000 injuries per week, which highlights the importance of recording sport as an activity when injured. VISU works closely with WorkSafe Victoria to monitor unintentional injuries that occur when working for income. Work-related violence is also an important area to monitor. The sixth question asks about the most likely human intent associated with an injury or poisoning. This is a challenging question because information is not always available at triage. When it is coded to a specific injury category, human intent is crucial for injury prevention, as well as interventions relating to assault or self-harm. Non-intentional harm means that the injury was unintentional. A broad range of injury prevention efforts focus on unintentional injuries such as falls, transport, poisonings, or sports injuries. Since 2019-20, intentional self-harm has been broken down into non-suicidal self-injury, suicide attempt, or suicidal intent cannot be determined. It is important to use these new codes so that intentional injuries can be monitored to inform public health policy and prevention programs. Assaults are coded as sexual or due to neglect, maltreatment, or assault. The perpetrator can be coded as current or former intimate partner, another family member, or a person unknown. Definitions of family members can be found in the VMD manual, or speak to your injury surveillance champion if you need help with clarifying the human intent. The intent cannot be determined category replaced the other specific and unspecified categories in 2016-17. Other categories include adverse effect or complication of medical care and police or legal intervention. The seventh question is the description of injury event, which is the patient's personal account or description of the injury event. It is entered as text and usually at triage. The VMD manual provides extensive guidelines for text options here. The aim is for high-quality descriptions that describe the injury event and circumstances that provide additional information to the other injury surveillance questions, including, importantly, any products involved. For example, the text can describe specific locations, such as in the bathroom of the home, at a playground, at the shops. It can also provide more information about an activity, such as working on a forklift, climbing a ladder, playing basketball. Of particular use is any mention of products involved in the injury. For example, drug names including the brand name, details of sports injuries or descriptions of nursery furniture such as high chair, pram, change table, cot, or specific toys such as Lego. VISU works closely with the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, the ACCC, to monitor the products involved in injuries across all age groups. The text description can also provide information about safety or protective equipment. Was the person wearing a helmet, seat belt, or mouthguard? Description of injury event question is unique to the ED and can provide invaluable information in addition to the other injury surveillance questions. If you have any questions, please contact the Victorian Injury Surveillance Unit via the Director, Associate Professor Yannicka Bereki-Gizoff. Publications using injury surveillance questions from the VMD can be found on our website. You can also visit the VISU Injury Atlas of Victoria for details of unintentional transport and sports-related injuries by local government area. Please visit www.vicinjuryatlas.org.au. Thanks for listening.